Mazda2 Hybrid borrows everything from a 4th generation Toyota Yaris, which means that it's a full self-charging hybrid, Mazda's first. So everything's borrowed here, but from one of the supermini segment's most appealing and economical little small hatches. If you get the right deal and don't care about badge semantics, it's all good, especially with this lightly revised updated model. And if you can't quite stretch to one of these but want a small Mazda, there's still the ordinary mild hybrid version to consider. Meet the full hybrid version of the Mazda 2. Except that underneath the badges, this isn't a Mazda 2. And there's also another Mazda 2 on sale, the one we've been familiar with since it was first launched back in 2015. Confusing, isn't it? So let's try and straighten things out. That 3rd generation DJDL series Mazda 2 still has a bit of life left in it. The car revised with new tech, mild hybrid power plants as recently as 2020 and facelifted in mid-2023, which was when we last tested it. But it can't be engineered for the more electrified full hybrid tech that supermini buyers now increasingly want. So Mazda has drawn on its frequent partnership with Toyota to broaden the Mazda 2 range. Which is why the old mild hybrid Mazda 2 eSkyActiv G model these days sells alongside the car we look at here, the Mazda 2 Hybrid, a rebadged version of the current Toyota Yaris. That makes this car a full hybrid, which means that its engine, unlike Mazda's eSkyActiv G mild hybrid unit, can run fully electrically some of the time, which makes all the difference to the efficiency figures. You still can't plug it in, but you can expect to get the most economical Mazda 2 ever. We first saw this car in early 2023, but in a form that Mazda didn't have much input into. Badge changes over its Yaris donor model were about the only difference, and as a result, that early Mazda 2 Hybrid looked a bit odd, sat with other Mazda models on a typical dealer forecourt. As part of the mid-term update to the XP210 Yaris design though, announced in 2023, Toyota allowed its Hiroshima partner to inject a bit more Mazda visual personality into its version of this car. And it's that updated Mazda 2 Hybrid, introduced here in late 2023, that we come to test here. This car enters a market that until recently Toyota shared with Honda's Jazz and the hybrid version of Renault's Clio. More recently, that triumvirate has been joined by hybrid versions of the Vauxhall Corsa and the Peugeot 208, with more affordable alternatives being provided by the hybrid version of the Citroën C3 and the MG3 Hybrid Plus. Most shopping for cars like those in this segment won't even know that this Mazda 2 Hybrid exists. Now that you do, should you consider it as an alternative? Well, you'll need the usual comprehensive car and driving road test to find out. This full hybrid Mazda 2 is a very different product from its mild hybrid showroom stablemate, and you'll feel that immediately it zips more energetically away from rest. Now that has much to do with the dense cells used in the 0.76 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery that powers the 2 electric motor generators integral to its self-charging full hybrid drivetrain. This works with a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine mated to an eCVT auto gearbox that responds reasonably quickly to throttle inputs. In a Yaris, this power plant's been packaged up in a choice of 2 forms, with either 114 horsepower or 129 horsepower. Only the 114 horsepower version's been made available to Mazda, but that's the version likely customers would almost certainly have chosen anyway. Rest to 62 miles an hour takes 9.7 seconds, but getting anywhere near to that requires switching out of this car's usual eco drive mode and into the alternative power setting. There's a further EV mode in which the car can run on battery power only for up to 0.6 of a mile, or in theory at up to 31 miles an hour in totally electrified form. During this test, we've been averaging around 35% of each trip on electric power. Now, beyond the city limits, the handling isn't quite as engaging as a regular Mazda 2, but it's still reasonably sharp, thanks to fairly responsive steering, a low centre of gravity, and a stiff, modern-era TNGA platform. As in a Yaris, the refinement is superb, which makes longer trips more palatable, these aided by the standardisation of dynamic radar cruise control, which can automatically maintain your distance to the car in front on the highway, where there's an all-electric top speed of 80 miles an hour. At lower speeds, when the battery will be your primary power source, all you really hear is a bit of muted whining under acceleration from the electrical hardware, exacerbated a little by the enhancement in regenerative braking you get when clicking the eCVT auto gear selector into its alternative B setting. Mazda has used the opportunity of the most recent Yaris update to visually differentiate this model a little further from its Toyota donor design, claiming that it now has a fresh and independent look. That's not quite true. It's still very obviously a rebadged Yaris, but then it has to be. Otherwise, Mazda would have had to conduct costly separate crash tests. Within the limitations of what was possible, though, this car does at least now get a bit more of its own personality. You might even think it looks better than a Yaris. There's very little that's Mazda about this supermini from here at the side. Yes, the standard fit alloy wheels, which are 15, 16, or as in this case 17 inches in size, are distinct to the Hiroshima brand, but it only takes a glance through the spokes to reveal Toyota branded calipers. This Mazda 2 Hybrid is fractionally shorter and narrower than a mild hybrid Mazda 2, which means that, as with the Yaris, by class standards, overall height and length are compact. The car measures in at 3,940 millimetres. Most supermini rivals are over 4 metres long, but the wheelbase and front and rear tracks are generous, giving a planted look. Pronounced blisters feature over the wheel arches, plus there are super short overhangs and complex surfacing over the rear doors. Where the main Mazdaization changes have taken place with the updated version of this model is here at the front, where a typical 5-pointed front grille has been grafted on to the Yaris's snout. The headlights are still Toyota stock fit items, but the bumper's now Mazda's own, and the brand badge sits at the end of the bonnet rather than in the centre of the grille, as with other Mazdas. If your Yaris change spotting here at the rear, the main difference is that the panel between the rear lights is body coloured rather than black. It's been subtly reprofiled too, and European design director Joe Senuit, who oversaw this design update from his German studio, contends that differing lettering and script for the badges has a subtle effect too. Under the skin, of course, it's not different in any way from its clone, which means that this car runs on a GAB version of Toyota's usual TNGA platform, which is essentially the same as that used in the larger Corolla hatch. This Mazda 2 Hybrid is also built on the same French production line as its Yaris cousin. Now, this isn't the first time that a Mazda supermini has based itself on a competing product. The final version of this Mazda 2 model line's predecessor, the last 121 model launched in 1996, was a rebadged Ford Fiesta, though a bit more effort was made back then to differentiate the interior of the product. At the wheel, as you'll notice if you happen to be familiar with the current Yaris, virtually no attempt has been made to do anything different at all, aside from adding this Mazda logo to the centre of the 3-spoke tiller. What you view through it changes quite a lot with trim choice. Either analogue dials, this 7-inch digital customisable speedometer and hybrid system indicator screen, or the larger 12.3-inch version of the same display that comes with top Homura Plus trim. That plush spec level also gets you a 10.5-inch version of this 9-inch central infotainment monitor too. Both displays feature wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto smartphone mirroring. We quite liked this cabin in a Yaris, and we like it here too. The driver's seat positions you quite low, and what surrounds you is all a bit plasticky, but You don't mind that too much for the money being asked here, which has mainly been spent on the tech beneath the bonnet. The controls are solid and chunky. The ergonomics are pretty faultless. The climate controls have been separated out from the central screen, and the build quality from the Pas-de-Calais factory seems fine. Cabin storage isn't anything to write home about. The door bins are narrow but can just about hold a small bottle of water. You could probably fit a set of gloves in the glove box, and there's a tray just above it that you won't want to use for anything because everything on it would slide around everywhere. Another small cubby is incorporated into this central armrest, but it's so shallow we can't imagine what you'd ever put in it. Below this you'll find a couple of cup holders, though once you fold the armrest down it'll probably hit the tops of any bottles you place below. Time to take a seat in the back. Now, these rear doors open quite wide, but it's fairly tight for cabin space in the rear, though it'll be fine if you rarely take adults here. A couple of lanky folk could just about be accommodated, but 6-footers will struggle to get comfortable. At least the centre transmission tunnel is low, so if it were ever necessary to squeeze in 3 folk back here, you could conceivably just about do it. Plus the curiously shaped side windows are quite tall, so kids shouldn't feel too claustrophobic. Now, as in any supermini, it'd be a bit of a squash with a couple of really big folk back here, of course, and headroom isn't great either, those 6-footers will just about fit. Most buyers, of course, will be using this rear bench for children, in which case they'll be pleased to learn that the rear seat belts feature force limiters and pre-tensioners, as well as the usual ISOFIX fastening points. There's no USB port back here, even in this plush version, and it's rather mean that a seat back pocket isn't fitted behind the driver's seat. But there are bottle holders in the doors and coat hooks in the overhead grab handles. We'll finish with a look at boot space, which is rated at 286 litres. That's 6 litres more than an ordinary Mazda 2. Neither figure is particularly generous by supermini standards, which is why, where most supermini rivals will take up to 5 carry-on suitcases, this Mazda 2 Hybrid will manage only 4. To give you some perspective, the segment sales leader, Vauxhall's Corsa Hybrid, offers 309 litres. It's also worth mentioning that a city car like Hyundai's i10 from the next segment down has a 251 litre boot that's almost as big. You might think comparisons like these to be a little unfair. After all, hybrid packaging has to have some practical effect, yet competitors manage it better. A rival Honda Jazz Hybrid offers 304 litres of space. With a Renault Clio Hybrid, it's 366 litres. Still, at least this trunk space is square and usable, extending back 630mm to the seat backs and offering 1004mm of width, enough for, say, a pushchair to fit in quite easily. There's a bag hook, but no tie-down points, and there's not space for much beneath the boot floor, where the space-saver spare wheel that you get in most Yaris variants is lacking here. Unlike a Yaris, you don't get the convenience of an adjustable height boot floor either. And flattening the 60-40 split rear bench, well, that frees up 947 litres. If you'd hoped this Mazda might be cheaper than its Yaris clone, you're going to be disappointed. Comparisons between the two cars are slightly skewed by the fact that Mazda UK doesn't offer the most affordable prime line trim level that's available to continental folk. So you wouldn't expect this car to match the entry point sub £23,000 starting price that at the time of our film in summer 2024 applied to the cheapest Icon spec version of the Yaris. The cheapest Mazda 2 Hybrid at the time of our filming was the Centerline version at just over £24,000, which is still around £600 more than the mid-level design spec Yaris that most Toyota customers choose. From there, Mazda 2 Hybrid variants run through exclusive line trim to this plusher Homura version, which, as we filmed, was just over £27,000, about £500 more than a comparable Yaris XL. The top Mazda2 Hybrid Homura Plus variant cost from just over £29,000 as we filmed. In case you're wondering, the mild hybrid conventional Mazda2 models range in price from just under £20,000 to just under £24,000. So if you're looking for ultimate value in the segment for full hybrid superminis, this isn't where you're going to find it. To be fair, a Yaris can't offer that either, priced comparably to hybrid versions of the Vauxhall Corsa and the Peugeot 208, but, like this Mazda, vastly more affordable than a hybrid Honda Jazz. The most affordable choice in this segment is the MG3 Hybrid Plus, or, if you don't want a Chinese small hatch, the hybrid version of the 4th generation Citroën C3 isn't too much more. If, having considered all of that, you decide to make something of an unusual choice and try this Mazda, then you're going to need to know just how generous the Hiroshima brand has been with standard spec. So let's take a look at that now. All variants get dynamic radar cruise control, LED tail lamps, normal power and eco driving modes, auto headlamps and wipers, a reversing camera and electrically operable mirrors. Inside there's air conditioning and a 9-inch centre screen with wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto smartphone mirroring. Camera kit fitted across the range includes pre-collision assist autonomous braking, lane tracing assist to keep you in lane, road sign assist and driver attention alert. There's also an e-call with GPS system fitted to alert the rescue services if any of the airbags go off. Now it's worth mentioning that this Mazda2 Hybrid is, alongside the Yaris, the only car in this segment to be fitted with a centre airbag. All of this, along with 15-inch alloy wheels, comes with base centerline trim. Next up is Exclusive Line, which adds 16-inch alloy rims, power folding mirrors, all-round parking sensors, keyless entry and a blind spot monitor with a parking support brake function that'll stop the car if you're reversing out in the face of oncoming traffic. Here, as mentioned earlier, we've got a Homura spec Mazda2 Hybrid, which adds quite a lot. At this level in the range, you get LED headlights, 17-inch alloy wheels, LED front fog lights and rear privacy glass. Inside, the analog instrument dials get swapped out for a 7-inch digital customizable speedometer and hybrid system indicator screen. Plus there's front sport seats upholstered in part synthetic leather. There's also dual zone air conditioning, a QI wireless charging mat, ambient lighting and an auto dimming rear view mirror. A useful rear parking support brake function also features, which will stop you manoeuvring at low speeds into static objects. Finally, there's top Homura Plus spec, which upgrades the instrument screen to 12.3 inches and the central infotainment monitor to 10.5 inches, adding navigation and voice recognition. Plus there's a panoramic glass roof and a head-up display. The efficiency figures here are, as you'd expect, pretty much identical to those of the competing Yaris, so expect a WLTP certified combined fuel economy reading of between 67.3 mpg and 74.3 mpg, with CO2 emissions of up to 87 grams per kilometre, depending on spec. To give you a point of comparison, the eSkyActiv G mild hybrid Mazda2 90 PS model manages up to 52.3 mpg in automatic form. Quite a difference. Those in a frugal frame of mind will want to try and get as close as possible to replicating the official figures by using the instrument binnacle's left-hand power meter display, and as often as possible staying in its blue charge and green eco zones. There's an available EV button that's supposed to be able to fix the car in electrified motion, which can apparently take place at up to 80 miles an hour. In reality though, you'll find that the batteries are hardly ever charged up enough for you to be able to use this feature, and even when you can, it'll only last for around 0.6 of a mile. To be fair, full hybrid engines, unlike plug-in hybrids, aren't designed to run for extended periods under full electrification. The idea instead being that the battery will cut in and out as needed during town driving. As a result, during much of your urban motoring in a Mazda2 Hybrid, say when you're inching along in traffic with the engine seamlessly disabled, the EV mode activated and battery power in motion, Well, you won't be emitting any emissions. At higher speeds, you'll need to bear in mind that the quoted fuel figures are even more heavily dependent than normal on the driver assuming a significant degree of restraint. Now, to get anywhere near even the 50 mile per gallon mark in day-to-day use with this Mazda, you'll need to keep the car locked into the driving mode system's eco mode, which moderates throttle response and engine power output while tweaking the climate control. And ideally, you'd be selecting the CVT gearbox's extra provided B setting, which increases the level of regenerative braking and therefore the level of energy harvesting as you drive. You can watch the hybrid system do its thing via a selectable energy flow monitor available on the car section of the center screen, or in smaller form in the instrument binnacle. Finally, when you power off, a trip summary pops up on the instrument screen ahead, giving you the distance you've just covered, the trip time, the percentage of the trip you've covered in EV drive, and the trip average in MPG. You can get detailed feedback on your car's frugality via a trip info section on the center screen, which graphically shows this Mazda's economy on current and history displays, together with range, average speed, and trip duration. You might hope that this hybrid system's frugality would entitle you to significantly better treatment from the inland revenue, but sadly not. This Mazda2 Hybrid attracts a benefit in kind rating of between 23 and 25%, which isn't much less than you'd have to find for a more conventionally engined supermini. But that's only part of the story. Take all aspects of your running costs into account, and this Mazda's running cost proposition begins to look more attractive. Take routine maintenance, for instance. Now, true, garage visits are quite frequent. They're every 10,000 miles or 12 months, depending on which comes round soonest. Still, there's no starter motor or alternator to go wrong, no drive belts to break, a maintenance-free timing chain, and of course, thanks to the CVT Auto gearbox, no clutch either. The hybrid setup has a good record for minimising tyre wear, and its battery will last the life of the car. Plus, the regenerative braking setup helps extend the life of the brake pads. Over 60,000 miles of driving, the front pads should only need replacing once, while the rear pads and all discs will probably last the full distance. What else? Residual values? Those are reasonable but not exceptional. Independent industry experts reckon that a Yaris will retain between 50 and 52% of its original value over a 3-year, 36,000 mile period, and we'd expect this Mazda to match that. The insurance group is 14E, the same as most Yarises, or 15E for the top Homura Plus version. Now, what we would have liked to have seen carried over to this car from a Yaris is Toyota's warranty, which in theory, provided the car is regularly serviced at a franchise dealer, can protect you for up to 10 years. In contrast, a Mazda2 Hybrid gets only the Hiroshima brand's usual 3-year, 60,000 mile package. Badge engineering can get confusing. Toyota's previously marketed the current third generation DJ DL series Mazda 2 as a Yaris in North America. This side of the Atlantic, it's the opposite, and here we've been looking at a Mazda 2 that's really a Yaris, a stopgap product until Mazda's full range of plug-in hybrid and EV products arrive. Still, if you're gonna have a stopgap product, the current 4th generation Yaris is a good one to base it on. It gives you everything you need in this day and age in a small hatch, and nothing you don't. Yes, there's a premium to pay over the older mild hybrid Mazda 2, but the additional efficiency of this car's full hybrid powertrain should cover most of that extra cost over an ownership lifetime, at the end of which you will have enjoyed a more modern product. Not a real Mazda perhaps, but a very complete supermini nonetheless.